Howdy everyone, and Dr. Parker. This is my presentation of my cross-curricular unit plan. I have attached a file if you would like to print it off and follow along as I give my presentation. My plan is on the Trans-Siberian Railway. Now, session 1 was the cluster outline, and from the subject of the Trans-Siberian Railway, I was able to plan an interdisciplinary unit that would meet the needs of my young adolescents' developmental needs and interest. I was able to incorporate history, math, reading, writing, and science. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read from my cluster outline to show you how this was developed. The Trans-Siberian Railway went to the research of the history of the Trans-Siberian Railway, the measurement between cities on the Trans-Siberian Railway, read a story from the book on the Trans-Siberian Railway, and write a report, graph the highs and low temperatures of the cities along the railway. Now, session 2 was the TEKS learner objectives and proposed assessment methods for all subjects areas in your unit plan. And now I'm not going to read everything that was on the session 2, and hopefully you're able to read it for yourselves. You will find it on page 3 of my unit plan. I plan on teaching young adolescents at the middle school level, and I chose TEKS for 6th grade English language arts and reading, math, science, and social studies. You'll find on my lesson plan the objectives and what methods I will use to assess. Now, session 3 was learning objectives for all unit subject areas, Bloom's leveled questions, and lesson plans. And what I'm going to do is we were asked to develop 6 questions for each of the 6 levels of Bloom's taxonomy for our lesson or unit plan. And we're going to read my 6 questions. Number 1, describe what happened along the Trans-Siberian Railway throughout history. Number 2, can you distinguish between miles and kilometers as you measure the distance between cities on the Trans-Siberian Railway? What questions would you ask of the author of the book on the Trans-Siberian Railway? How was graphing the high and low temperatures of cities along the Trans-Siberian Railway similar to graphing the same in the United States? What would happen if you lived back in March 1891 and worked on the Trans-Siberian Railway? And what changes to the story on the Trans-Siberian Railway would you recommend? Also, we were asked to describe learning activities for all subject areas in the unit plan. So I'd had to make a timetable of the Trans-Siberian Railway, write a summary report on the Trans-Siberian Railway, construct a model to demonstrate their graph of the high and low temperatures of the cities along the railway, devise a way to demonstrate their measurements of the distance between the cities along the Trans-Siberian Railway. And number 3, we were to submit a lesson plan according to our template and resources. Here's what my copy looks like. And you're going to find a copy of my lesson plan on page 6 of my unit plan. And time's not going to permit me to read my whole lesson plan, but I do believe it's a good lesson plan and will meet the needs of my students. As a teacher, I will be able to analyze my students' content, identify major concepts and important details they are learning. Now, session 4, we are asked to list teacher and student materials. And for the teacher, I'm going to have a textbook, graph paper, computer, and overhead. For the students, they're going to need several items. They're going to need textbooks, graph paper, computer, trade books, art supplies, pencils, an English to Russian dictionary, matchsticks, paper mache, paint, cardboard, a diary, ruler, and paper. Also for session 4, we're asked to write a cross-curricular activities for my unit on the Trans-Siberian Railway. And some of the sample activities that help the students build a greater understanding of the railway would be under language. They can learn a few words of Russian. I could maybe have a Russian speaker come to class, use a translation site or visit the library and find an English to Russian dictionary. art, I'd make a model of the, or had the students make a model of the Trans-Siberian Railway using matchsticks, paper mache, paint, and cardboard. History, social studies, make a timeline showing the development of the railway and its influence on Russian development. And under culture, they could learn about Russian culture, find out about dress, food, clothing, politics, make a poster, PowerPoint display, or give a presentation about an aspect of Russian lifestyle. Science or geography, do a research paper project on the geography of Russia and how the railway helped modernize and shape such a massive and varied landscape. And under personal reflection and values, they could write a diary entry sequence for maybe they could pretend they were a convict working on the railway in the late 1800s. How do you feel? What do you hear and see around you? How do you think about your lot in life? And what are your hopes and dreams for the future? Session 5, we would do an annotated book list, and I'm not going to read everything I wrote, and I'm just going to give you a briefer description of my trade book list. For more, I invite you to start reading on page 10. One of the trade books was Over the Trans-Siberian Railway. This was a picture book that takes a look at the landscapes and observations, the results of the force winds and weather in shaping the landscapes along the Trans-Siberian Railway. Math Curse, this is an amusing book, and it's pretty good about dealing with numbers in everyday life. A history of the people of Siberia. It's a history of the people of Siberia from the Russian conquest of the 1980s. And The Revolution. This is a fictional book on a couple's travels on the Trans-Siberian Railway during the Russian Revolution. And last book is a trade book is Teaching with Children's Literature. This book is designed to help teachers choose literature and create instructional materials for use in the elementary and middle school of students. Now, my references are on page 11 of my units, and I just want to let everybody know I've honestly learned a lot from this course, and I plan on using many of the contact area reading strategies when I begin my teaching career. I have enjoyed some of the discussions with you and hope to see you guys in another class or in the classroom or maybe even the horse trail at the bee. Thank you very much.